Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Kanga TV, home of North Melbourne fans. And can you believe we are already at round 10? I don't know about you guys, but I feel like season 2025 is absolutely flying. We are set to play our first game of the season at the MCG this Sunday afternoon. We take on Richmond in what is going to be a very, very telling clash for the club and where we're at. And I think the feeling amongst fans this week is that the last 3 weeks since Good Friday have been great. We've seen drastic signs of improvement. I feel like just about all of us thought all hope was lost after that Good Friday game, but we've come out against Port, we've come out against Essendon, and we came out over the weekend against Brisbane and just threw everything we had at each of those games and came so close to winning 2 of them, and obviously drew with the Lions in Tassie over the weekend. But I think now a lot of us are sitting here and thinking if we can't beat Richmond on Sunday, then all of that hard work and all of that excitement, all of that promise that we've shown over the past 3 weeks would have probably been for nothing. And I definitely echo those feelings and that sentiment myself as well. It's obviously been awesome to see the way we've been able to respond over the past few weeks. There are so many things to like. We've kept our opposition to under 100 points in all 3 games. Our defensive setup across the board, not just in the back line, looks a lot stronger. We've injected a little bit more pace and a little bit more running off the halfback with the inclusion of Riley Hardiman. We've gone slightly smaller in defence. I know we've obviously had a couple of big omissions. We had George rested against Essendon. We've been missing Paul Curtis for 2 weeks now, and he won't play. It's his last week sitting on the sidelines with suspension this week before he comes back against Collingwood. We've been without Jackson Archer, who has that high-grade hamstring injury. He'll be missing for 8 weeks, but we've seemed to be able to cover our losses. I mentioned Riley Hardiman. We look like we've unearthed a gem in him, and I've been screaming for him to come into the side for weeks, and he's finally been able to cement his spot, and he's looked awesome. The form of Dylan Stephens over the past month has been so exciting, and we always want to be proven wrong on players that we just don't think are up to it. But his last month, he's beaten Bailey Scott out for the number 1 winger on our side at the moment, and he's been able to have a real impact in all the games that he's played so far in season 2025. Charlie Comben is back to his ripping form. Tristan Cherry is back in what should be all Australian form. So there's obviously some concerns, and there's some things that I'd like to see changed over the weekend and in this game against Richmond. But the game as a whole, like I said, I think for all of us, we need to see a win here. Honourable losses, it's not something that I really believe in. I do think where we were sitting at the end of the Good Friday game, it was important for us to show a response, and if our best wasn't good enough, then so be it. Do I think that we've given our best in each of those 3 games? I think we've seen glimpses of our best, and the fact that we've been able to challenge it with the 3 sides that we have played, considering we haven't really got close to any of them over the past couple of seasons, is one thing. Particularly Brisbane, the way we challenged the reigning premiers, to turn around a 70-odd point defeat at Gather Round last year to Brisbane to a draw in Tasmania is definitely a huge swing our way, but we still have that one issue of first quarters. We still haven't won a first quarter. And the difference between the first quarter against Brisbane on the weekend compared to some of the others we've seen so far this season is Brisbane didn't exactly get the jump on us. They kicked the first goal of the game within the first 30 seconds, but it was a fairly even playing ground after that. And it was our inability to capitalise on our field dominance in that first quarter that really hurt us more than Brisbane hurting us. And that's definitely something I would love us to address, because going into this game against Richmond, we've got a different trajectory of our games in the way that Richmond do. So Richmond start their games really strong. Often at times this season, you've seen Richmond get the jump on the opposition and then they fade out as the game goes on. Whereas for us, we start slowly, and then our second and third, and even recently our fourth quarters as well, we've been building as the game goes on. So I think there's a real opportunity here if we can even out the first quarter and then look to build on that as each quarter goes on, then I think that should be a really, really good way for us to put ourselves in a position to win this game. Last season, our most convincing and I would say quote unquote best win was probably against Richmond under the roof at Marvel in round 21. We beat them by just 13 points. It felt like it was a lot more comfortable and comprehensive, but I did check the scores before I jumped on to record, and it was just a 13-point win. They did get out to a good start in the first half, Richmond, in that game, and then we were able to claw our way back, and we ended up putting our foot on the accelerator in the second half. LDU was immense in that game. He chipped in with a few goals, and I think we'd be looking for him to be able to potentially replicate that performance. And there's a couple of others who maybe have been missing in action over the past few weeks that we'd probably like to see impacting the scoreboard. Nick Larkey is definitely one of them. There was an article written about Nick Larkey in late April about how he's the sharpest shooter in the AFL, and he's pretty much gone missing ever since. He hasn't been terrible, but he definitely hasn't had the same impact that he was having so far in the early stages of the season, and I wonder how much of that is due to the absence of Paul Curtis as well, because he and Paul Curtis were an incredible 1-2 punch before Paul Curtis obviously got suspended after that tackle against Port Adelaide a couple of weeks ago. But up until that point, the two of them, I think they were on 18 goals apiece at one stage. 36 goals between them is a pretty handy duo, and it is hard to build synergy like that amongst teammates. Things like that can take years, and I know we've spoken a lot about the addition of Jack Darling and how our forward line definitely flows a lot better with him in there, and I will give credit to Cam Zurhaar. He's definitely stood up in the absence of Paul Curtis over the past couple of weeks, not just on the scoreboard, but also his general play, I think, has been really good. He was the one trying to get something started in that first quarter last week against Brisbane, and I'd look for him to replicate that performance as well. Someone like Finbar Maley, he's obviously only played a couple of senior games. He was definitely a lot quieter against Brisbane, and I'm in two minds about whether I would like to see him play again this weekend. So obviously the extended bench will come out tonight, and then final teams will be confirmed on Friday. But it's nothing against Finbar. It's more just about the structure of the side. Finbar is a key forward, a tall key forward, whereas Paul Curtis is more of a mid-size, and we definitely look a lot more dangerous and a lot more lively in the forward line when we do have just the two key forwards. And we saw exactly why we recruited Jack Darling over the weekend. He was really quiet for the first three quarters. Yes, structurally, the forward line does flow a lot better, but he had 4 possessions in the fourth quarter against Brisbane for 4 scores, 2 goals too. And if only he was able, I know, to maybe capitalise on one more of those shots, but he looked like the most dangerous. He broke Harris Andrews open, which is not an easy task to do in the fourth quarter, and almost won the game off his own boot. So we know what he's capable of, and he looks the most dangerous when he is just left forward. And the thing with Jack Darling in that fourth quarter against Brisbane, Jack Darling played 100% of game time in the forward line. He didn't go into the ruck at all in the fourth quarter, and there's something to be said about that. Now, whether we keep Finbar on the field for the entire fourth quarter and he's the one, or for the entire game, I should say, he was subbed out against Brisbane, and then be able to throw him in the ruck to back Sherry up, I still think that's my preference, because as we've spoken about, and I've spoken about this before, Jack Darling should be playing forward all the time. He's definitely at his most dangerous there. If he's not actually creating an option in front of goal deep in the forward line, then he is able to push up. He's a really physically demanding presence, and he's a great marking option slightly further afield. So that would be my preference. Trying to get Nick Larkey involved, maybe Larkey takes a couple of the ruck hit-outs. It's definitely not something I would want to see, but it kind of feels like we're a little bit stuck with position, because the one person I would potentially consider bringing in is Geordie Payne. Geordie Payne was on the extended interchange bench ahead of the game against Brisbane and didn't make the final side, and he positionally for Finbar is something I would like to see this week. On the flip side, I think Finbar did enough in that game against Essendon to warrant his spot against Brisbane, and I'd be reluctant to sub him out of this game, or take him out of this game, I should say, simply based on one quiet performance. I do think there is beauty in giving people a consistent run and giving people an opportunity to settle at senior level and giving it all they've got. On the flip side, we do know that this game is definitely a winnable one. Not that the other 3 haven't been, but I think going into this game, it's probably our most realistic chance to grab a win. And we know we look our most dangerous up forward with the 2 tall forwards and then 2 medium-sized forwards. And in the absence of Paul Curtis, I think Geordie Payne would be a great option unless we opt to bring Zane Dersma back into the forward line. He's been playing more of that hybrid midfield and then pushing into the forward line, or do we look at someone like Jai Simpkin in there? I think we do have a few options aside from that, and I'm not saying that's necessarily a change I would make either. It's more just structurally an idea where I do feel like we do look more dangerous in that position. Otherwise, I would be reluctant to make any changes. As I have said a few times this season, I think there's beauty in consistency and there's beauty in continuity as a side as a whole, and we do seem to in the past few weeks have found a really solid mix in terms of positions and in terms of structure, and therefore I would probably be reluctant to make too many changes unnecessarily. There was definitely nothing broken in terms of the side over the weekend. There was a fair few who did have slow starts, but everyone was pretty much able to have an impact on the game at some point. I would say Dersma and Finbar probably the two that I would say maybe didn't as much as the others, but even the likes of Jai Simpkin and Tom Powell, they started the game slow and they built themselves into the game and worked their way into the game really, really nicely and were really, really important in that second half. So there's a few things to think about there, but in terms of making changes, I don't know if I would make too many changes, and I don't know how many of those who are on the extended interchange bench this evening will actually make the final side in the end. Like I said, the only one structurally I would consider taking out of this side would be Finbar, especially because it is supposed to be a chance of rain on Sunday and we're playing at the MCG. Funny, the weather in Melbourne so far this winter or leading into winter has been beautiful, and the first weekend where it's going to be raining and cold is our first game at the MCG for season 2025. I guess this is one of the cons and one of the chances you take when you look for more games at the MCG throughout the year. But hey, I'm sure we will all show up regardless. I know I'll be there. I'm sure I'll see plenty of you guys there as well. There's nothing like playing footy at the MCG, the home of AFL here in Melbourne. And like I said, I hope to see as many of you there as possible for what I really hope is a big statement win for us. I think Richmond, in terms of their progress and the way they're playing so far this season, have been a surprise packet, definitely for season 2025, but I don't think we're far behind them. While I think Richmond's been playing some really exciting footy at times, they've obviously had some big scalps in terms of Carlton and in terms of the Suns. I still think our best footy this season is better than what Richmond's put out on the park. Is that a bold statement to make? Probably, because we haven't been able to get the job done, but hopefully, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy. I'm not saying that this is a sure thing, but I think if we are serious about showing improvement and we are serious about the strides we have taken, particularly over the last 3 weeks, then we need to win this game. And I don't even want to think. I said leading into the Port game a few weeks ago, I don't even want to think about what's going to happen if we have another performance like we had on Good Friday. Well, I'm sitting here now and saying I don't want to know or think about what the response would be if we can't get a win over the weekend. It's definitely the most pressure I have felt for the team heading into a game since round one. I definitely felt like there was expectation and there was pressure heading into Good Friday, because I personally felt like the teams were pretty much even heading into Good Friday based on the form they had shown so far that season. And that obviously just went horribly, horribly wrong. So I'm looking at this game now, though, and thinking seriously in terms of expectation to stand up and deliver. I don't think we've had expectation on us probably this season so far, with the exception of round one. And I think it's a big, big challenge. I really think we are good enough to rise to the challenge, and now I want to see us do it. There's a lot to play out, and it's going to be a big week for us. It's Camden McIntosh's 200th game as well, so I'm sure the Tigers will be up and about, no doubt. I think it's going to be a big game. I know it's going to be a big game regardless of the weather, and I really hope that the fans show up, because there is a lot to play for, and I think we need all the support that we can get. So hopefully we'll see you guys at the MCG on Sunday to rally behind the boys. How do you think we are shaping up ahead of this clash against the Tigers? Leave all of your thoughts in the comments below. We can also chat further over on socials, Kanga TV Show on Instagram, X, Facebook, and email as well for those who are that way inclined. Also, viewer has kindly sent in a couple of tickets for Sunday's game. So if you do need tickets, please send me a message. First come, first serve. I do apologize if they're gone by the time you're watching this video, but I would hate for people to miss out when there are a couple of tickets available. And if that's the reason between you going and not, then definitely send me a message and I will organize those for you. I will be back on probably Saturday for the final word, and then I will see you all at the MCG on Sunday for what is hopefully our second win of season 2025. Go Roos.